special guest here, and I love it when she's around. It's Arlene Dickinson. Such a wealth of information. I never want to let you go when you come here. We're going to be talking a little bit about personal finance and saving specifically, because as Canadians, we have not been doing a great job of putting money in the bank and just sitting on it or investing it properly. But I think people can really learn a lot from your story, because you started in South Africa with your family and your two sisters, came to Canada when you were about 3, and you had parents that had to be very fiscally responsible to make things work, because they literally came here with $50 in their back pocket.
Right.
That's it. So you learned a lot from that experience. What are the sorts of things you learned?
Well, I mean, you know, it's always the things that stick out to me are, you know, groceries were a big deal in our family because we couldn't afford to go to the store and get regular food, which later on created its own food issues for me. But then, you know, then also even buying new clothes. I didn't have a brand new anything until I was 13 years old. Everything was from either the Salvation Army or hand-me-downs from my 2 older sisters. So it was all about, you know, kind of, you don't really know that you're poor until you kind of think back and you go, gee, we really didn't have any money. But my parents made do. They, you know, made, everything was homemade for food. Everything was handmade for clothes, or, you know, as I said, secondhand.
Yeah.
But I survived.
They made it work. You survived, and you've done way better than just survive. You are absolutely thriving, but had to go through so many of your own, you know, ups and downs to get there, because you yourself have 4 kids.
Yes.
And at some point found yourself, your marriage dissolving, and you're responsible for these 4 kids and trying to get some money going. What did you do? Because I read in your notes you were really good at a sales job, but got let go because, you know, for downsizing reasons, and then worked with a venture company for free. For 2.5 years.
I worked at Venture. I went to Venture Communications, started working there for free as a partner, got involved and didn't make any money, but I needed a job. I mean, I had shared custody with my ex-husband, so it was always a battle in terms of just everything personally, financially, stress everywhere. So I really relate to, in particular, women who struggle with, can I save enough money? Can I get by? Am I smart enough to do what I need to do from an investment perspective? And sometimes you just have to trust that you are, and that there's lots of ways to get out of things, but it takes some courage and it takes some listening to your intuition, which women are good at.
Right. And you were actually living hand to mouth. I mean, you were racking up the credit card bills. That's what we're going to tell you not to do. But at that time, you weren't listening to any of your own advice because you were in survival mode.
No, I always laugh that on Dragons Den, everything we ever told everybody not to do, we all did. Okay, you know, we all did. But I think you don't know what you don't know when you're young and you're trying to get going and you're trying to figure things out. I mean, our phones were disconnected and our heat was turned off and all of those things that people now go, really? And I go, yeah, absolutely. You know, we all had to learn, and sometimes you learn the hard way.
Absolutely.
But you have to figure it out.
Okay, so help us out now, because you have all this information now. You've walked through the fire. You're saying small change can really add up to big savings. Like, we need to be looking at all those pennies we might just be brushing aside and actually saving them.
Well, I walked through the fire, but not in these shoes.
Those are good shoes.
Well, so are those.
Thank you.
Sorry, we're having a shoe thing now. Yeah, one of the reasons I found out, you know, the small change does add up. I actually was working with my grandson. I mean, back in the day when I had 0 money, taking any coins out of my purse was helping to pay for food and things like that. But then later on, just a few years ago, I told my grandson he could have all the change in the bottom of my purse, and every time we got together, he would take it out. And at the end of the year, he had $600.
Oh!
Which means I carry a lot of change, I guess. But you know, likely, even if you had $100, it's a lot of money that you carry around, throw into drawers. So put it in a bank and save it.
That could be a vacation.
That, for him, it will be.
Right? Yeah. That's something. Okay, so once you've considered $1,500, you say there's a couple of things you should consider doing with it. Right.
You can put it into an RESP if you have children, which is a great way to save for your child's education for the future, and it's also a great tax deduction. Or you can put it into an RRSP, which is also a great tax deduction and also a great way to save for your retirement later on.
Right, which is something that we're not doing enough of right now. A lot of people are finding themselves in a tough situation. I've been hearing this forever, save 10% of your income, and I think it's probably the most old school advice I've ever been given, and it's the advice I've always followed since I was making, you know, not enough to even move out of my parents' house. So why is it important to do that?
Well, you have to pay yourself first. That's really the adage. Pay yourself first. Because if you pay yourself first, then you have the ability to fall back on your savings if things do go wrong in life. And you can't predict what the future holds. You know, your parents might get ill, or your children might need you, or you may in fact fall ill. Whatever could happen in life. So you always you might lose your job. So you want to always have savings for that. But I actually also say that you also want 10% put into charities if you can afford it. Live on 80% of your income if you can, because when you give money to charity, not only do you help your community and you feel good about it, you also get a tax benefit from it. So you get money back from tax.
That is something we should all think about doing. You have to feed your soul as much as you have to feed your stomach.
It's a great way to put it.
Your soul,
no,
right?
It's true.
So $1,500 a year, you say, is about $4 a day in savings. So if we focus on small milestones, it'll make things seem a little bit less daunting, right? I think a lot of us look at our huge bills and we think it's insurmountable.
Well, I remember the early days when I was saving. I used to feel so demotivated because I'd save for a bit and then I'd have to dip into my savings to pay for stuff that I didn't think I'd have to. And then I'd feel, oh, I'll never get ahead. I'll never be able to save. So what's the point? It's no different than exercise or doing anything, right? You just give up because it doesn't feel like you're getting where you need to. But $4 a day, save it every day. Don't buy a coffee. Don't buy a treat. Do something that's for the long term instead of the immediate short term benefit, and you will save $1,500. And if you have to dip into it, that's okay.
Right.
Just start again.
Yes, at least you're trying. It's like a diet. Just start again.
Right.
We all do every Monday, right?
Every morning, actually.
Every morning.
Actually,
Today it's going to work.
Yeah, today's the day.
Be smart with your cards. So go there, do the research, and make sure you've got the right credit card. This is something I have to do. My credit card's not working for me.
Yeah.
So I got to go do the research and get a card, maybe with rewards, right?
Yeah, go to Scotiabank.
Yeah.
Scotiabank has a great card. Has a great card. And I'll tell you, cards are a great benefit because you don't pay interest on them if you pay them off every month.
Right.
So it's a great way to put capital.
If you pay them off every month.
100% pay them off every month.
Yeah.
And then you can use those cards and get that, credit without paying any cost to it. But you have to pay it off monthly. You have to manage your credit.
You absolutely do. And you have to see it as money that's borrowed, right?
That's right.
So you mentioned Scotiabank, and I'm happy you did. Scotiabank actually wants to help you save. How does this sound? What would you do with $1,500? We are going to draw for a bank draft worth $1,500 from Scotiabank. Now, okay? So this is pretty cool. It's exciting. It's actually one of those days I want to be in the audience. Drum roll, please. The winner of a $1,500 bank draft is Rita Sempoña. You have won a $1,500 bank draft from Scotiabank. Nice work. All you have to do is show up at City Line. So, what do you think she should do with it, Arlene? $1,500. You have any advice for her?
Oh, I think, save some of it. Save 10% of it.
Good.
And then go and spend the rest on something you really want to have, like a holiday or, get some education or do something that you've been wanting to do for yourself. But make sure you save some of it.
Good advice.
Give 10% of it away if you can.
Yeah, good advice. I love that. Thanks so much thanks for coming by, Arlene. Let's go to break.
Tracy.
We've got more coming up. Always so good. I love the old